Welcome to the Peak Season Podcast, the show where we dive deep into all things short-term rentals, hospitality, and how to run your property like a pro. I'm Luke.
And I'm Tyler. We're two super hosts turned co-hosts who help owners transform their vacation homes into thriving businesses.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Peak Season Podcast. In today's episode, we've got Tech or Trainwreck, the tools that make or break your STR business. How's it going, Tyler?
Doing great, Luke. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Pretty good. So today we want to talk about how the right tech stack can turn your business into a cash flow monster and how over-reliance on it can actually be detrimental to your business. We're going to go into some of the things that we use, some of the lessons we've learned, and how you can apply it in your business.
Yeah, that's right, Luke. So your tech stack, which is the tools, the apps, the automation that you're supposed to make for your hosting life easier, but it can also sometimes make it a lot more complicated. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of your tech stack and give you some ideas and things to consider when you're evaluating what you should or should not be using for your hosting business.
Absolutely. So I found that there's two types of hosts out there. People that want to do everything completely manual. They're using very, very minimal tech. And there's people that are really trying to automate as much as they possibly can and rely on tech almost completely. And I think the right place to be is probably somewhere in the middle, moderation in all things, right? Especially excess.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think for me, it keeps coming back to the one principle, and that's that simple scales and complex fails. So if you can simplify your operation through technology, then it is almost always going to be a good thing. But if it is adding another layer of complexity, then sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
Yeah, fair point. I think when you have the right tools, it can definitely help alleviate pain points for you and alleviate time that you're spending on this business. But sometimes if you overdo it, that's where things can go awry, right? Maybe systems aren't speaking to each other. You have your Airbnbs just got blocked, but for some reason it didn't block, and now you got multiple bookings for the same overlapping dates, things of that nature. That can happen. And so today we're really going to talk about how the things that we use and maybe some things that we like or dislike about some of the different tech stack that we use to, again, kind of help you navigate and determine if there's something that you may need to add or something that you may want to, keep doing more manually, quote unquote, right? But giving you still that hands-on and that touch that you need as a host to show that care and compassion for your guests throughout their stay.
Absolutely. So the first thing that we would really have to talk about in this list, and if you don't have this, you probably aren't using hardly any other stack or any other tech in your stack, and that is going to be your property management software, your PMS. And we could probably do a whole episode just on different types of property management software and where certain ones are strong and other ones are weak. But in this case, we are both in agreement. I've used several different ones, but Hospitable is my go-to. Tyler, why don't you talk a little bit about Hospitable?
Yeah, I started using Hospitable from the get-go, and there was no turning back for me. It's easy to use, automates your messaging, still allows you to add customization so guests get timely and personal responses. It, again, syncs to your OTAs, i.e. Airbnb and Vrbo, so that way you're not getting overlapping bookings. It speaks to other third parties like Price Labs, which we're going to talk about, of course. But even really small things that make a big impact for me and kind of alleviates time is I have it synced to my Slage, right? So when a guest books, it automatically creates that code for them, and I even allow it to go in. I say, use the last 4 of their phone number, right? So it's something that they're never going to forget. It creates a great guest experience. I don't have to go in and manually create those codes. And I'm even looking, Luke, I just started looking today because I'm like, man, winter's coming. I hate having to remind myself about turning my thermostat up before the guest comes and turning it down when they leave. And, Hospitable is recently integrated with Ecobee, which is what I have at my property. So I'm looking at how can I utilize that and not forgetting some of those things that could cost me a lot in the winter. The extra energy bill can really hurt me.
Yeah, I guess we're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but that's what we're here for, right? I was doing an audit of all of my annual expenses last year for Seven Pines Chalet. And next to mortgage interest, my largest expense was utilities and specifically propane.
Hmm.
So if you can find a way to, have your property management software integrate and turn up and down your thermostat when guests are due to arrive or when they're after they check out, that's absolutely huge, and it's going to be a huge savings. And I need to upgrade the thermostat to be compatible with Hospitable. I think right now they're compatible with Ecobee and Honeywell.
Honeywell. Yep.
Yep. So, and
Yeah.
I've got a Google Nest in there right now, which is not compatible. So that's on
Well,
my to
I'll
do
let you
list.
know how it goes because I'm gonna
Yeah,
spend the $5 extra a month and have it synced. So
nice.
to
So
be
to drill down a
continued.
little bit further, the Schlage. So we're talking about the Schlage encode door lock,
Mm,
and that is what most short-term rental owners are probably using. I don't think it's a huge majority, but I'd say more than 50% of us are using the Schlage encode door lock. And it does integrate well with almost any property management software, but it goes especially well with Hospitable. I think they don't charge extra to integrate with it. I don't believe, which is huge. A lot of other property management softwares charge per door code that gets sent, things like that,
right.
or they charge per integration. And it will also give you notifications when the battery is dying or when it drops below a certain threshold, and you can choose to have that emailed, texted, a push notification, however you want to see that. So you could actually have it sent to your handyman if you wanted when your slag was low or your cleaner, which is huge. And then also one thing that I really enjoy that it does is it lets me know the first time a door code gets used,
Yeah.
and that's a
Yeah.
setting
When
you
the
can
guest
toggle
checks
on.
in. Yep.
Right. So
That's
I can
great.
see when a guest arrives. I don't need to see every time their kid opens and closes the deadbolt, getting that constant notification from Schlag. I have that disabled, but I want to know when they get there just so I can see that they did check in properly. They found the cabin, the lock worked for them. I can rest a little bit easier knowing that they were able to check in.
Yeah. And again, I think Hospitable has some of these great features like, these different integrations, but I'd say the meat and potatoes of what's really helped me in my business and streamline is really the messaging, right? Having those messages, and I still create those messages. Hospitable is not creating them for me, but I have the certain points during that guest from booking to leaving the property. Automating that in a way is super helpful for me. I still have very personal touches in those messages, but again, I'm not needing to sit there by the computer and remind myself of when I need to send certain things, and at what points throughout a guest stay do I need to send those.
Yeah, and Hospitable for hosts that have been around just a few years used to be the gold standard for messaging. And what a lot of people would do is they would actually get Hospitable just for messaging and still have other property management software operating in the background because there were other places where Hospitable was not as good as them. And in my journey, I started with Hospitable and I loved it, but then I wanted some other support for different things that Hospitable didn't provide at the time. And I left Hospitable and went to a different PMS. And then I found myself missing them so much that I came back. And during that time, while I was away, they actually added all the functionality that I was missing. Specifically, was support for the co-host side of things, owner portals, billing, things like that, as well as what's the word I'm looking for? The rental agreements.
Yeah.
So sending rental agreements and having them signed, that's
Hmm.
all handled natively inside Hospitable now, where it wasn't before. So
Yeah.
they make it better almost monthly. I think they keep adding new features, and it's really powerful software. I definitely can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, and I think paired with a dynamic pricing software is probably the two biggest ones for me. And what Luke and I both use is Price Labs, the dynamic pricing software, and consistently analyzing the markets, your competitors, the seasonality, the different holidays, and it's automatically updating your nightly rates. Without it, I can see, I've seen hosts that have definitely had their properties underpriced. And maybe they were booked, but they were booked at 200 a night when I'm just getting $500 a night because there was a huge event coming in that they forgot about or wasn't looking at, or maybe they didn't update it over the holiday. There's a holiday and I'm charging a 3 night minimum, and they just got 2 nights. So again, dynamic pricing software, I think, is a critical piece to your tech stack if you're not using it.
Absolutely. And with Price Labs, like a lot of the software we're going to talk about today, it's good for everybody to use Price Labs. I think at least a novice user is going to have a better understanding of what's going on in the market by using Price Labs. But really going next level with it and learning how to use it well and building out comp sets and using the market dashboard feature and really getting in. Price Labs is like a labyrinth where you can just go
Mhm.
in and spend all day in there and still not find the center of it. Um, but really, even just using it at all, you're going to see an uptick, and you're going to have a better understanding, at least, of where you're priced versus the market. But it's worth it to spend some time and really dig deep into it. And if, in all honesty, if you find yourself saying, I can't figure this out and I don't want to use it, it's probably worth it for you to pay somebody else to run it for you. Look into a good revenue manager and let them run your price list for you. It's pretty affordable. And I think you'll find almost without fail that a good revenue manager can pay for themselves over and over again.
Yeah, not only from filling up your calendar, but setting the right prices accordingly, adjusting for those seasonalities, looking at the holidays. And I think that's one thing here at Upstream Vacations that we do well for ourselves as hosts and for clients is, just having that really good hone in on the market and where we're at and when we need to adjust things based off of not just the season, but different events that are coming in that maybe Price Labs doesn't know. Price Labs doesn't see the different events coming up in northern Michigan. It knows the holidays, but there's big events and we're using that information and adjusting our pricing strategy accordingly.
Sure. And Price Labs does have the ability, like it'll know some of the events coming up, but it also has the ability for owners to submit events, which is huge. So, if another Price Labs user submits that there's going to be a Taylor Swift concert that weekend, now Price Labs knows it and they'll see the shift in demand before that, but they can actually tell other owners why. And I think that's pretty valuable. And just to take it a step further, I think just to drill down on like why I think everybody should either get very good with Price Labs or use a revenue manager. I think, not only is that one of the biggest levers that we can pull as far as increasing our revenue for our business, pricing appropriately, but sometimes you need a revenue manager to disassociate yourself with the emotional side of hosting, right? So,
That's a very
maybe
valuable.
you can't see the pricing for black and white, or maybe you love your property so much and you think it's so great that everybody should want to spend X to be there. And that's okay because you love your property, but you are placing more value on it than the market is. And a good
Right.
revenue manager doesn't love your property. They just love to get you as much revenue as possible for it. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, this is a business, right? We love our homes. And that's where I want to retire eventually. But right now it's a business that I want to be super successful because I want it to pay for itself and generate some income for me. So valid point, Luke. Because I know that from being an owner who has a lot of, we'll call it sensitivity towards my cabin and who's coming in, who's coming out, and at what cost. And yeah, Price Labs does help remove some of that bias that I have about my property and gives me a little bit better of reality of where I should be priced to maximize my occupancy. So Luke,
Absolutely.
let's talk about a couple other ones. These are some ones that we used collectively at Upstream Vacations, but some that you've used probably more than I have, or I haven't used them. I know one that I'm familiar with. This is how I found my first cleaner, but I haven't really been using it anymore. Why don't you talk about Turno?
Sure. Turno is an app that I use that integrates with any property management software, but it acts as kind of the go-between your property management software and your cleaners. So that's managing a cleaner schedule, notifications. It's a place for them to upload photos after a clean's complete. It's also there's a payment portal in there, so you can send money to your cleaner, or you can have them automatically paid as soon as turn is complete, which is a feature that I love. So I'm not spending hours every month doing billing for my cleaners or making sure that they're being paid or being invoiced and all that. As soon as the clean is done, they click done and they're automatically paid. And I love that. And also it has functionality for like revenue, I'm sorry, not revenue, inventory management.
Mm-hmm.
So they could say, hey, you're low on coffee pods. We need more paper towels, things like that. So if your cleaner is fairly even just minimally tech savvy, then Turno should be something that they are interested in using. And a lot of times you can use that immediate payment thing as sort of a carrot to get them on board if they weren't before.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's advantages to having it. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I don't have it, but things that I took away from it, just knowing the system. Again, that's how I found my original cleaner was, I'm like, I want pictures. I want pictures of every room, especially the beds, the toilets, the high touch areas that mean the most, I guess. And I have them have a list of all of the inventory of what I want to put out or per new guest check in. So I'm not a host that's just going to leave you with one roll of toilet paper. So how many do I leave out? I leave like 5 out per bathroom, regardless of whether it's a 2-night stay or a week or something of that nature. But I definitely think, having the checklist with the photos attached there and then kind of that reminder of the payment or the automation and that is there's definitely value there.
Yeah. So are you just getting text messages with all the
Yep.
images?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then they're time stamped. So they're
Yeah.
still time stamped with the date. And that's what I care about.
Hmm.
I had somebody recently ask me about something that it wasn't a challenge on cleanliness. Actually, it was just somebody asking about do you have they asked about did I have a Bluetooth? They're like, we forgot our Bluetooth speaker. I'm like, yeah, actually my cleaner just took this picture right before your stay today. And I sent the picture because it's right on the kitchen on the countertop
Yeah.
where I have it plugged in. So they're like, oh, that's amazing. Thanks so much. And so also helps for questions that guests may have.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think going back to our header, as far as like simple scales, complex fails, I
Mm-hmm.
think if you're going to operate multiple properties, and this is when I started using Turno, when after I had more than one property, it wasn't practical anymore for me to get text messages from the cleaners about with just routine like, hey, the clean's done,
Sure.
hey, the here's all the pictures, or for me to be texting the cleaner like, hey, did you start yet? Because when they get there, they touch a button on Turno and it says that we're at the house and we started cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get notified. I could turn it on to be notified if I wanted, but I get notified
Sure.
if at a certain time they're not there cleaning,
Mm.
which
That's
which is
good.
nothing I like.
That's a good
Right.
one.
Yeah. So, and that's the big one that you want to know, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to be operating multiple properties, I think there's several softwares that can do a lot like what Turno does, but you need something that's going to be an interface for your cleaners.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, I don't think it's not something super complex. Again, I've played and dabbled in Turno a bit, and I don't think it's overly complex. So as long as you have a cleaning crew that's somewhat a little tech savvy, it's pretty user friendly.
Yeah, and it's free.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Go High Level.
All right, so Go High Level. This is a customer relationship management software, and they also do marketing. So we're hosting all of our websites through Go High Level. We use their website builder. All of our direct book websites are built through there. The property management website, I'm sorry, not the property management, but our co-hosting website is built out through there. And then it also manages all of our email automations, guest lists, or I'm sorry, email lists for nurture campaigns, things like that. To be honest, like Go High Level is extremely powerful software that major businesses are using, and I'm probably using 10% of it in my business. So it is absolutely scalable and usable in almost every instance that we would ever need as far as maintaining a relationship with our customers.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point some out here, Luke, because obviously you kind of introduced me to Go High Level, right? But before that, I was looking at what are other things that need to be considering or thinking about when I'm building out my trying to increase my direct bookings, right? And so I was looking at Stayfi, and then Mailchimp, things of that nature. And so now I'm looking at multiple different softwares, if you will, or items to help me with that. But I think Go High Level does a pretty amazing job at being able to take multiple things that I may have originally needed two or three different systems to help me and kind of bundles it into one.
Yeah, absolutely. You can build out a website for your digital guidebook and have that hosted there. You can use QR codes to have guests join your mailing list, or maybe have them scan a QR code and they join your mailing list prior to getting the Wi-Fi password. If you want to do that, you could really, the sky's the limit with it. You can build it out with so much functionality. You can have pop-ups on your direct booking website where they can join your mailing list right there and get a discount code, which is what we do. There's a million ways that you could build it out and tailor it to really fit your business. Another thing that we'll do is give them the opt-in for text messaging.
Mhm.
So to get on our mailing list, they just give us their first name and their email address, and now they're going to get the direct book coupon code or whatever. But during that same time, we can have a workflow that text messages the same thing, or we can wait until a certain amount of time has passed and then we're text messaging them. Or we can also track through their IP if they've came to our website and only text them if that IP visits our website multiple times, or things like that. So you can scale it into as many different ways, as many different variations that you'd like. But the important thing is that it's there and that we have some sort of software that is managing the relationship with these customers.
Yeah, Luke, just to dive a little bit deeper into that, just kind of like we were talking with Turno, right? So Turno, maybe use it with one property if it's free, but you don't really need to. But as you get more and more properties, maybe it's worthy. What are your thoughts about that with Go High Level?
I think there is value to build it out immediately. And at the very least, when you start hosting, you should be building an email list, even if
Yeah,
you're not going to use it yet, because you can't go back in time and get those emails later. At least it's very difficult to, and you're not going to catch all of them. But if you can start building out your email list from day one, even if you're not completely ready to start doing email marketing, um, then that's very, very valuable. And then when you are ready to build it out, you have a list to begin with. So
yeah,
I can't recommend
because
that enough. And actually, shameless plug for us, upstreamvacations.com. Go to the website, fill out the form, and get in touch with us. We've got a service. We will build out your high level for you and sort of help build out a direct booking website and help build out those first workflows for emails. And then we also have a support group once a week where we all get together and we'll help you with building out your high level. And that's just part of the service. And it doesn't cost any more than a regular Go High Level subscription.
yeah, great point, Luke. And, I think one thing that when you're looking at building out your email list, why are we looking at building out email lists? Well, we want every host goal should always be to try to not be as lenient on Airbnb and Verbo, right? On these OTAs and really start building out your own business through your direct booking platform. And, you know, you're not getting guest email information from an Airbnb or a Verbo booking, right? And I think Luke, you even mentioned, isn't Airbnb going away with even providing the actual guest phone number?
Yeah, I believe what they're doing is they're going to start giving out like some sort of a phantom number for you to text
Well,
the guest and vice versa. So they won't give the guest your number and they won't be giving us the guest number. So during the stay, it will work for a text, I believe, but after that, it's done.
yeah,
So getting avenues for guests to be able to get on your email list and for you to stay in contact with them after the stay is going to be increasingly valuable and scarce.
yeah.
Yeah, so because before we could just text the guest after the stay and say, "Hey, do you want to join my email list?"
Right.
But not so much
Well,
anymore.
and Airbnb recently, this past year, really honed in even on all of us as hosts, and they started using AI to identify things that we may have been putting in. Like I had in my touch stay a plug-in for my direct booking. Like, want to stay again? Use our direct booking, save 10%. But it's flagging those things now. They're looking for anything and everything that has to do with taking business away from their platform. So again, I think it's really critical to if you're not or haven't yet, start looking and thinking about how do I become less reliant on some of these and how do I gain and increase my bookings through my direct booking link.
Sure, and it's just a nice thing to have also as a fallback. Say we're doing a little bit of an automated nurture campaign with our past guests where we're talking about things that are coming up in the area and all that. But say it's a week from 4th of July and you just had a cancellation and you're not sure if you're going to be able to book that huge weekend. So you have the choice, and everyone's probably got their 4th of July plans locked in at this point, right? So you got the choice between going on Airbnb and cutting your pricing or going to your
Hmm.
email list and emailing 200 people that stayed with you previously and saying, "Hey, I
Yeah.
just had a cancellation. Does anybody want 10% off?"
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
Great point.
And I've used that in the past where I've been able to fill vacancies for big ticket weekends because I had access to all these people's contact information and was able to just send out a quick email blast.
So let's go on to the next one. I know again one you're using. I'm not personally using as a host, but RankBreeze. Tell me a little bit more about RankBreeze.
Sure, RankBreeze integrates with your Airbnb listings and it basically tracks where you're showing up in the search results. So it's tracking over time what page and what number you're ranking for different searches. And it gives you the ability to kind of A/B test different changes to your listing. So, for example, you want to change your cover photo, and you can stamp that you changed it on this date, and then you can watch and see if your rankings go up or down. And then you can change it back and see if they go up or down. And we can dial in our rankings is on the at least on the Airbnb algorithm and figure out what's working and what's not. And it's allowed me for our market, Tyler, for Seven Pines Chalet. I'm in page one, spot one, and it's pretty cool to be able to see that. But there's revenue management clients that I've worked with that started off on page 11 and we've slowly got them up to page one. But it's unless you're using software to track that, you're kind of just guessing.
Yeah.
And just as a sort of tidbit for people that are curious where they're ranking, the only real way to know is to, besides using RankBreeze, is to open up an incognito window on Chrome or another browser where you don't have any cookies saved. Go to Airbnb and pretend like you're a guest and just look for yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise, it knows that you're listing and you've got it favorited or you've been there multiple times or
Right.
whatever. So it's going to show you that first, right? You're going to think that you're number one, but you're really not.
No, that's a very valid point, and I think um, awareness is key as competition gets, higher and higher, or stronger and stronger, maybe is the word I'm looking. As hosts, we have, and as our businesses, right, we have an obligation and ownership to make sure we're looking at our properties consistently. We're analyzing them. We're seeing, what we can do, what tweaks we can make, or how do we make our guest experience better. But also things like this are really important, right? Because you can have all the amenities in the world, but if you're listed on page 10 of Airbnb, nobody's seeing your stuff.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And and RankBreeze also has good suggestions as far as what you can do to change, whether it be your pricing or your listing or your copy or things like that, and rise up in the rankings. So if you're finding your listings buried, RankBreeze might be a way to help get out of that rut.
All right. We got kind of two more, right? One other one. Let's talk about, we're going to talk about Host Buddy, and then we're going to talk about the newest one that everybody's probably starting to use, which is Chat GPT or AI.
Sure. So I'll go into HostBuddy. I What HostBuddy is basically a AI messaging platform. It's web based, and you tie it in with your property management software, so it'll link up with Hospitable or whatever else you're using. And it actually goes in and it reads all of your listing information. You build out SOPs for it. You can give it PDF copies of your guidebook. You can give it instructions about how you want it to sound, what questions you want to answer, what you don't want it to answer. Do you want it to talk with guests when the tone turns negative? Or if the tone turns negative, things like that. You can turn it on to be on all the time, or you can do like I do, and I turn it on to be available when I'm not, like all night.
Right.
Or if so for instance, if somebody sends me an inquiry at 2 a.m, they're going to get a response right away that is not just an automated canned message like most of us are doing with our property management software. It says, "Hey, thanks for your inquiry," and usually if they have an inquiry, there's a question, right? So it answers the question, and then
Yeah.
it increases your conversion that way. And then
And
also, like
Luke,
you
we
can
talked.
create a
Oh,
yeah.
go
Go ahead.
ahead.
I
Oh,
was
I
gonna
was
say you
just
can also
saying well, we'll
go
cut
ahead,
that
man.
out.
We both
Uh,
want to talk.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say I had one recently, right? So where you're like, man, Host Buddy would help, right? Where it was like guest inquired at like, I don't know, 11:30 something at night. I was already in bed. Right now I have a canned message, but and I followed up, but I was too late, right? I think something like this could have
Yeah, they were
helped
looking to book the
maybe
next day,
salvage
right?
that, right? Yeah, I was
Yeah,
for the immediately the next day. So I can definitely see value in this because not that it happens that often, but man, then it kind of got me thinking about, well, shoot, like what happens if the guest's there and I don't know, they're staying up later because it's their vacation, right? But I'm not gonna lie, Luke. I'm not a night owl. I'm a go to bed early and wake up at 5 a.m. kind of guy.
right.
So I'm asleep traditionally no later than 10, right? Maybe 10:30. So in between those hours, man, things can definitely happen, especially in the summer, right? Or especially during whatever your peak season is. Having this additional layer may be worth your weight in gold.
Yeah, and I was saying earlier, you can give it access instructions, and it actually comes with like a test area, so you can say, treat me like a current guest, and you can say, hey, I can't find this, and it will
Yeah.
say, oh, it's over here. Like it would have known probably that your Bluetooth speaker was on the counter if it had any way of knowing that your Bluetooth speaker was on the counter.
Dang.
Yeah. So, and it a lot of and now that you've messaged that, it will know that forever.
Yeah. Just
So
don't
for
change
instance,
where
I
it's
had a
going.
guest that couldn't find the cord for the air hockey table in the basement at Seven Pines,
Mm,
and they messaged when I had Host Buddy turned on, and Host Buddy knew that I had told a previous guest, and I had forgotten at this point, that the cord was tucked up inside the side of the air hockey table, and it said, "Hey, It just responded on its own, said, "Yeah, the cord's right in there in the side of the air hockey table. Let me know if you need anything else. Hope you have a great night."
That's awesome. That's
And
cool.
I was like, I would have probably messaged them back like, I don't know. I thought it was there, but it knew because I had said it before, right? So
Great.
it was pretty cool. It's great software, even if you just have it fill in gaps when you're not going to be available. It knows the code to my backup lockbox, which I don't give the guests unless they can't get in. So if a
Mhm.
guest can't get in, it's going to troubleshoot the Schleg with them, tell them how to use the Schleg. And if that doesn't work, it knows where that lockbox is and what the code is, and it has a physical key in it.
Now what so I'm just looking at their website right now. So it looks like they have pricing. There's a pro version, there's an elite, there's an ultimate. Do you have any recommendations for our listeners if they're looking at one?
Yeah, they have one that, they have one that kind of matches anybody's use case. They do have, I think the ultimate one is
Mhm.
it includes putting in all these automated messaging.
Uh, got it.
So you can give it your checkout instructions, for example, and it will send tailored checkout instructions to the guest with sort of a personalized flair.
Got it. I like
So it would
that.
say, "Hey, I hope your honeymoon's going okay. Here's the checkout instructions for for your stay." Um, I don't personally use that because I feel like hospitable is enough. I use the
Right.
next tier down, which is just basically responding.
That's
And I
cool.
found that, yeah, because there's certain things that Host Buddy won't know that only your PMS knows, like what their door code's going to be.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can't put all of your automated messaging on it. And I found that it didn't meet my simple scales mentality to have some of my automated messaging coming from Hospitable and some of it coming from Host Buddy.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right. For time's sake, keeping us on par, let's talk a little bit about the next one or maybe the newer one. And again, Host Buddy's kind of AI, right? But another one we're using is
Oh,
Chat
absolutely. Yeah.
GPT. I use Chat GPT all the time, personally and professionally. But I've used it. I think again in our last podcast episode, we talked about some pain points for hosts, right? And we talked about using Chat GPT to analyze our reviews or analyzing other host reviews and pinpointing some of the pain points or the pros and cons, right? That the most positive and negative feedbacks. ChatGPT is a great way to utilize that. I've used it, although Hospitable has a decent AI response that you can use. I found that ChatGPT oftentimes is a little bit better, especially if you have maybe a guest complaint. And again, maybe HostBuddy's a great one for that too, right? But I don't have that right now, so I'm using ChatGPT to kind of keep myself grounded, if you will, right? If a guest maybe not being the nicest and providing a polite and empathetic yet professional response to them. What
So when you
other
say
things?
using ChatGPT, do you mean you're basically copying the
Oh
what the
yeah,
guest said and
yep,
pasting it into ChatGPT and saying, "Hey, help me respond to this"?
yeah. And I'm saying, hey, you're an Airbnb superhost. You received this guest complaint. Reply being empathetic, and understanding, yet provide them with knowledge in a professional way, right? And I'll play with the words that I want, so I get what I want. But I'll be honest, most of the time, ChatGPT nails it on the first one, and I'm just copying that into my messaging.
Yeah, I find that ChatGPT is really, really helpful for writer's block. It
Yep.
can help get you
Yeah.
started on stuff like that. And if it says something where you don't really like what it said, then and you can fix it, or you can say, "Hey, make that more empathetic," or
Yeah.
whatever. But yes, I mean, some ways that I use it, building out my listing descriptions, like the whole
I was
description
going to
area
ask you
of.
that because I have yet to have it analyze my listing description. So have you done that recently?
Yep.
How did it do? What were
Oh,
your thoughts
great.
on that?
And you can tell it what you want too. So you can say optimize for conversion.
Sure.
This is my listing description. Or you can say, ask me 20 questions one by one about my Airbnb and then write a listing description that's optimized for conversion. You can give it the website of your Airbnb and have it go look at it and tell you what looks good and what doesn't. Another thing I like to do is, so for search engine optimization for SEO, it helps to have a description in each of your photos.
Mhm.
because then all those are going to
Yep.
ping on Google searches, right?
Yep.
So go through your entire listing and say, this is a photo of the coffee bar at Seven Pine Chalet. And you can either give the photo to Chat GPT or just tell it what it is. Say,
Right.
hey, this is the photo of my coffee bar. Write me a description. So write
Right.
just a nice copy and paste it in there. And you do that for every single photo.
Yeah. We even talked about, I don't remember if you use ChatGPT for this one, Luke, or not, but we're not always at the properties, right? And maybe you want to capture an updated photo because, hey, winter's coming, but you look back at your iPhone and you don't see a ton of winter photos and, in what you have in your iPhone. What do you do to maybe generate some more prevalent seasonal photos?
Yeah, so I'll actually. This is sort of not Chat GPT, but it's AI. I use Gemini, and with inside Google Gemini's AI, they have a tool called Nano Banana, and I'll go in there and say, take this picture and make it winter outside. So it'll take a picture of the inside of my cabin and turn it into winter outside instead of green trees. You can do the same for fall
Amazing.
foliage, and it's only as good as the prompt. So if it
Right.
gives you something you don't like, you need to change it, and also make sure you have the permission from whoever. If you have the appropriate copyright rights for the photo to change it, some photographers get funny about that. But especially if it's a photo you took yourself, absolutely change it, enhance it with AI, and put it on there. Professional photographers have been doing this for years with virtual twilight photos.
Yeah. Good
So
point.
it's they're not taking these pictures at exactly sunset every night.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when I sold my house recently, right? They did it during the morning, but then, when they listed it, it was like a beautiful evening.
Yeah.
That's a great point, man.
Yep.
I always wondered how they did
Yep.
that. That's how they do
Yep.
it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about our tech stack. Let's talk about maybe let's be on the defense side. Why should we not use tech stack? Like what are some of the pitfalls of tech and maybe things that our hosts need to consider of staying away?
Sure. I mean, I think especially when it comes to guest communications, we don't want things to sound robotic or lose their personal touch because AI, as good as it is, it doesn't sound like a person. You can tweak the prompts, and inside my host buddy, I've even told it, do not sound like AI, sound like me. But it still sounds a little bit like AI, right? Or be very specific. AI likes to do things where it uses a lot of hyphens or it uses the guest name a lot. And I said,
Right.
don't use the guest name because I'm never gonna say good question, Tyler. Just not how I
Right.
talk, right? But unless you can really get a handle on it, I think actually having a person communicate with guests is probably going to be best, especially if you're available to do it, right?
Yeah.
Now, AI is better than nobody, but you're better than AI still.
Yeah. Agree 100%. I think the other thing that I can think of is just over reliance from, and you said this, right? Not being robotic, but just in general, over reliance. And then you really truly are a hands off host and you're not building those connections. You're not, I don't know. I feel like you're kind of taking away from truly creating a guest experience that you want. And so being too reliant on that is one. And maybe another one is just, you have so much, it costs you like $500 a month, right?
Right.
Or something of that nature. But, just be evaluating when you're looking at your tech stack too. Make sure that systems can speak to each other or, sync and make sense to help you maximize it. If you're unsure, we're happy to help out and answer those questions or analyze it for you. But I'd say that's another big thing is just seeing how these things can work together. If there is a way to work together to make your life easier, but still, again, always be personal and provide the personal touch that you need to own as a host.
Made me sort of think when you said being a hands-off host, like we're talking about how Hospitable lets me know when a guest checks in for the first time, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And Turno lets me know when the cleaner starts the job or when they don't show up, depending on how I
Right.
have it configured, right? So those are examples of me being a hands-on host, but I'm using tech to accentuate that. To where if there's a turn on a Saturday and I'm at one of my kids' games, or if I've got a full family day planned, I'm not glued to my phone all day. But in the back of my mind, I know that the cabin is turning and I'm expecting the cleaner to check in and I'm expecting a guest to check in and I know that all this needs to happen, but the tech can help me make sure that happens without being 150% glued to my phone.
Right. I think the middle ground is I think a balanced approach. Maybe something that's more hybrid where you're not using each and every imaginable software that you can think of, but what marries you still being a hands-on host, but allowing you a little bit of time to breathe and still enjoy your life, and not being too worried about your business.
Sure, but I mean, all this tech can fail as well, and there's areas for things to slip through the cracks. So I
Yeah.
think if you really want to be hands off, you need to find someone to cover for you, or you need to pay a virtual assistant or something like that. You need to have an actual person monitoring your business. You cannot be just gone for days on end and hope that the tech has it. I know you went on a cruise earlier this summer, and I took care of your property
Yep.
for you. And when I went to Europe this summer, I actually allowed HostBuddy to do more than normal, and it was magnificent. But I was still connected every single day. I mean, I was checking in and all that. So if you really want to unplug and all that, you need to find an actual person to watch over this stuff and make sure that the trains are running on time.
Yeah. I think kind of just to recap or give our final thoughts is there's value in having some tech, right? Because if you don't have the tech, you're probably working too hard. But if you have too much tech, you're probably missing that personal connection with your guests. And I think that there's again kind of that sweet spot in the middle is where we
Couldn't agree more, Tyler. I don't really have anything else to add other than that. You want anything else you want to touch on before we close it out?
if you're hearing this and you're thinking, wow, this seems overwhelming, I don't have the time or the patience to learn these tech stacks, and I realize that I need some help, and I want to become, a better host, or I want to increase my revenue and my occupancy, reach out to us at upstreamvacations.com and let's get a conversation started, and let Luke and I help understand what your goals are and where you want to be and how we can help you get there.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I'll close it out for this episode. Thanks again for joining us. And if you got any value from this, which we hope you did, we would absolutely appreciate a 5-star review from you. And we will see you in the peak season. Take care, everybody.
Bye.